here to introduce Marty Stanley. I'm very excited to finally meet her this morning. We've talked on the phone quite a bit over the past few months. Marty is a nationally recognized speaker and author. She's had a 20-year career in corporate America as a vice president of HR. I do HR as well, so I know what fun that is. But that's the boring stuff. What she told me is that she learned the most about people and working with people from her first job. And in her first job, she wore a bikini to work every day. She wouldn't tell me what that job is. So are you ready to have fun with Marty today?
Thank you. Yay. So I did. I wore a bikini to work every day when I was in high school. I had a summer job, and I grew up in Newport, Rhode Island. And so I was a beach photographer. And that was really fun. You know, when you're 17 years old, you know, you just get up, put on your bathing suit, you go to the beach. One of the things I learned, though, is that I wanted to take pictures of the lifeguards, right? You know, you're 17, the lifeguards are the ones you want to take a picture of. But they didn't have any money. So what I realized was I needed to go to the people who had kids, and if they had kids, they always wanted to capture the moment of the day, and they were really great. So that was my summer job, and I learned a lot from that because I worked totally on commission for that too. So you had to work hard for the money. So I have a question for you. I asked a couple of you this already. If I can show you in 17 seconds or less. Put this up here. Well, we're going to dim the lights so you can see this a little bit. There she is. Lisa, could you dim our lights a little? Thank you. So I'm going to show you how in 17 seconds or less we can turn a red light day to a green light day. Now, a red light day looks like this. You wake up in the morning and it's kind of like this. It's raining outside and you think, oh, I just want to stay in bed today. I do not want to go to work. These citizens are driving me nuts. And you drive into work. Some of you might have a couple stoplights you've got to go through. You hit every stoplight. And you get caught in the rain on the way into the building. And then you get in and about 4 people have a million things for you to do. Does this sound familiar? Yeah. So and people say to you, how's your day going? And you say, you know what? It started out bad and it's gone downhill. How many of you have had a day like that? Okay, good. So I'm going to show you in 17 seconds or less how you can turn that to a green light day. And a green daylight goes like this. You wake up and you think, man, I'm on fire. I must have had a fabulous dream. I'm ready to go. I can tackle anything today. And you get in the car, you breeze through every green light. You get rock star parking. You go into work and people say to you, you look marvelous. And then people come up to you and they say, you know what? I have some free time. Do you need help with anything? How would you like to have a day like that? Okay. So here's my question for you. What difference would it make for you if you could turn it in 17 seconds or less from red light to green light? Who would like to volunteer? You just shout out an answer. What difference would it make for you?
All the difference.
Who said that? All the difference? What do we have, a ventriloquist here? So all the difference. What kind of a difference? Like what might be happening for you?
I'd be more positive already.
Yeah,
More positive? Mm-hmm. Okay. And what happens when you're more positive?
Every problem is just easy to solve.
Easy to solve.
Answers come.
And how do you like the people around you then?
Oh, you just love them.
Yeah, you love them.
Pure positivity. Yes, they do.
Yeah. And then they can love you too. Does the day go by faster?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the day will go by faster. Okay. So be thinking about what difference it would make for you. Because right now we're going to talk about how conversations can change the way you see the world and even change the world. I love this quote because if you think of, let's say, John F. Kennedy, what was a conversation that he started that changed the world? We have to go back in our history. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Which, by the way, it was kind of an eerie thing. This past week I spoke at the Southwest Human Resource Conference in Fort Worth, and I happened to stay at the hotel where he stayed the night before he was killed. And that was just kind of an eerie feeling, and there was a beautiful memorial to him out in front. But that conversation changed the world. He also said, let's put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. And we did. Those were conversations that changed the world, which, by the way, the first one, ask not what you can do for your what the country can do for you, started the Peace Corps. That statement was resulted in starting the Peace Corps. What about Martin Luther King? What did he say? I have a dream. Those are conversations that change the world. So I want you to be thinking about, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Because your conversations can change the world around you. I want you to be thinking about, are you saying the same thing over and over again? How many of you have seen this quote before by Albert Einstein? Yeah. It really can hit home, and we say the same things over and over again, whether it's with our families or with our coworkers or our boards, you know, our council members. We end up saying the same things over and over again, but we might not be getting any different results. So we're going to be taking a look at that throughout the day. I want you to be thinking about your intentions. What are your intentions? What are your intentions for your work? What are your intentions for your family? What are your intentions for your community? And I bring this up because when you create an intention, it kind of starts the momentum of things. Now, as Melissa said, I came out of the corporate world, and in 1996, I was the Vice President of Human Resources for AMC, yes, I was, AMC Entertainment. Right before that, I've been the VP of HR for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I had created an intention when I was participating in some very intensive personal growth and development work. I'm geeky about that. I do a lot of personal growth work and self-study. And in one of my courses that I took, they said, we want you to create your future 150 years from now. That's a stretch, you know. And so I thought, 150 years from now, what are they looking for? And it was basically, they wanted us to create legacy. What's your legacy? So at that point, like I said, I was the VP of HR at Blue Cross, and I thought, you know, I want to have one more corporate experience, and then I want to go out and start my own business. And I had been in the corporate world for a long time, and this might look familiar to some of you. I had the opportunity as the head of HR to lead a lot of the corporate initiatives. And many times it seemed like flavor of the month to me. Do any of these look familiar to you? 1 Minute Managers? Raise your hands just so I can see. Yeah. And it became like flavor of the month. It was like the senior leadership team would say, okay, now we're going to do this, and it'd be this shiny object. And then as the head of HR, I'd have to say, okay, guys, we're not going to do Six Sigma anymore. Now we're going to do lean management, and everybody would put their binders away. And this is what basically we ended up with, 3-ring binders that sat on the shelf. I have boxes. I see you nodding your heads. I have boxes that I've been lugging around thinking maybe someday I'll use this stuff. So when I created my intention back in 1996, I said, I want to create a process where people don't have to remember 7 habits or 6 steps or 5 keys. I want something that will be empowering. I want to create something that will be regenerating and something that would be sustainable. And what I was thinking around that was empowering people with knowledge, skills, abilities, and tools, and regenerating from the standpoint of you get it and you take it back and you bring it forward with the people you work with or with your families or in your community, and it becomes sustainable after that. Not green, but long-lasting. So I share this with you because what you're going to hear is what came about as a result of that intention. And I will tell you, I had no idea how I was going to do this. I had no clue how it was going to take shape. I had this big idea, and then I thought, okay, we'll figure out what happens. But when you create an intention, it starts things in motion. And you start meeting people who have resources that you hadn't heard of before, or you meet somebody and they tell you about something else or a place that might have some information that you're looking for. And that's what happened to me in 1996. And I started meeting people and hearing about things that I'd never heard about before. And how many of you have read the book or seen the movie called The Secret? Anybody here? One? Okay, so we know you're not watching Oprah. The book came out, I think it was in 2006, and it basically talks about the law of attraction. And what the law of attraction means is what you think about and what you focus on is what you get. So I talk about, it's the same concept, but I learned about it through some topics on quantum physics and neuroscience. This is when my family thought I was crazy. What are you doing? You're in business and you're in HR. Why are you reading all this stuff? But I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of this. And basically the way it works is that if you hold a thought for 16 seconds or more, whatever's on that frequency will come back to you. So think of your thoughts as like a giant magnet. What you think about and what you focus on is what you get. So if we go back to the red light, green light day, if you're holding a thought for 17 seconds or more that this is a crummy day, I can't wait for it to be over, I just want to go home, pull the covers over my head, you're just going to get more of that, okay? Versus if the days when you have a green light day, those are the days you think, wow, I should buy a lottery ticket. You know, everything's going my way. And it's the same thing. So what I want you to get is that you can turn a red light day into a green light day in 17 seconds or less, and it's a choice. You have a choice on a moment by moment by moment basis, whether you're going to have good day or bad day. Up till now, it's 9:15 on October 10th, and up until this day and time, you probably thought, I don't have any control over this. Well, now you do. So what I want you to be doing in the next 2 weeks, I call it the 2-week challenge, I want you to be listening to yourself. I want you to be listening to yourself to see how long are you holding those negative thoughts and try and get off it as fast as you can. Because if you want to shift the results that you're getting, your thoughts, your words, and your actions need to be aligned and consistent. Think about an area of your life where you're not getting the results that you want. It could be at home or it could be at work. And I'm going to guarantee you that something's off, either what you're thinking or what you're saying or what you're doing. There's an inconsistency. So here's an easy one on a personal level. How many of you have tried to lose 5 pounds? Just like the whole room, right? Yeah, so you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to lose 5 pounds. You know, I'm committed. I'm committed to this. And you tell your family, and you tell everybody you work with, I am committed. I am going to lose that 5 pounds. And then I noticed in the back room, we have some fabulous bagels and some great spreads to put on there. And, you know, it's like dive right in. So then you say, okay, tomorrow, right? Or you go through the drive-thru. You've had a hard day at work. You're in a hurry to get home. And what do you say when you go through the drive-thru?
Just for today.
Just for today. Just, yeah, supersize it, just for today. Or, you know, I'll have a large order of fries, whatever it is. Or you might say, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to start going to the gym, but then, you know, the Cardinals are playing. You think, I'm going to let's make some big nachos and jump on the couch, you know, let's have some good baseball food. So that's what happens. What you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing are inconsistent. And what I want you to be thinking about is, where at work is this happening for you? Chances are, if you're having trouble with your colleagues or with your board or the city council people, there's something missing in maybe how you're approaching it. I want you to be thinking about, what's your intention for your interactions with these people? And then, are you aligning your thoughts and words and actions? Because that's where you'll get the results. So this is the get out of bed graphic. I refer to it as get out of bed because you can see at the bottom it says blame, excuses, and denial. That's the bed. So as I was doing my research and coming up with something that would make a difference for people where they don't have to remember 7 habits or 6 steps or 5 keys, I saw this model or a version of it. It didn't look like this. But I thought, yeah, big deal. So what? So what? You know, I mean, I've seen a lot of models. What makes this one any different? And I realized I had to take into consideration, what am I thinking, not just what am I saying or doing. Because I thought I'm pretty good about not blaming or making excuses in my actions and in my words, but my thoughts, it was a whole different thing, because it all starts with what you're thinking about. So I went back and I thought, I started listening to myself as part of my 2-week challenge. I thought, I'm going to listen to what's going on in my head. You know, all that little chatter that goes on nonstop, that broken record. Yeah, I started listening to that. And I realized that probably 99% of the time, my initial thought was blaming or making excuses. And before I said anything, I could turn it around a little bit, but usually it was never my fault. It was always somebody else's, or, you know, I could blame anybody for anything. So that's when I realized this is where the juice is. It's like turning that message off as fast as you can. Because what you think about and what you focus on is what you get. Thank you. So when you do your 2-week challenge, listen. Are you taking ownership and accountability for what you're thinking? I'll give you an example of this. I was down in El Paso. Has anybody been to El Paso before? It's a little border town, really sweet. There's a cute little boutique hotel that I would stay at, and I was doing this presentation for a client down there. And I love this little hotel, and in the morning, I spent a little extra time reading USA Today in the room, or, you know, just relaxing before I went out to my engagement. And I thought, oh, I better go get breakfast. Well, at this little boutique hotel, all they have for breakfast is really a big Mexican breakfast buffet, or you have to order off the menu. And I'm thinking, ooh, Mexican breakfast buffet is probably not a good choice before a whole day of training. So I should probably order something off the menu. So I ordered a boiled egg. Pretty simple, right? And I'm sitting in the dining room and I'm waiting, and 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I'm looking at my watch and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. And like, what does it take to get a boiled egg? I mean, really. And I'm getting a little hot under the collar, and I'm just about ready to go out into the kitchen and say, where's my boiled egg? And then I realized, no pun intended, but what it boiled down to was I spent too much time in my room. But I wanted to make the waiter, I wanted to make the kitchen staff, I wanted to blame it on everybody else, that in case I was late. Just like that. I mean, in a nanosecond. It wasn't my fault, it was somebody else's. And I started laughing because I was going to be doing this presentation, and I thought, here I am, blaming and making excuses all the way. But it didn't just stop there, I got out of the restaurant and I get in the car and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to be late. And I'm thinking to myself, I have all my excuses lined up. The traffic, the construction, the detours, the red lights. I mean, you name it, I went through the whole list. The bottom line was, I got there, I had 45 minutes extra. I always plan enough time. But it was my nature just to want to blame somebody else and make excuses before I even needed them. How many of you do that? Anybody here? Yeah. And it wears you down. It wears you down. So what I want you to be doing is thinking about this, and do your 2-week challenge and see. Because how many of you have been around people who like to whine and complain? What's it like when you're around whiners and complainers? It's a downer. It's a downer. What else? You want to get away from them. Yeah, I want to get away from them too. It's frustrating. Do you find yourself coming down with them? Yeah, you become negative too. Exactly. So here's the thing. You want to be really clear about not being that person yourself, because we can wear ourselves down with our own negativity and be exhausted. How many times have you gone home at the end of the day and think, I'm exhausted, but I didn't get anything done? Okay. there's a good chance that you spend a lot of time in your head whining and complaining. You know, that whining and complaining that goes on that sounds like a country western song? Think somebody did you wrong? Yeah. And that's the thing. We can have these, I call it a broken record. We can have this broken record that goes on and on and on. And it's the same old story. You're not problem solving. And you're not, I mean, there's no place for it to go. The end result is always the same. It can be a story that you tell yourself that happened yesterday, an hour ago, a week, a month, a decade ago, or even a couple decades ago. Somebody did you wrong, and you start playing that tape over in your head again. Am I the only one that does this? Okay, good. Good. So here's the key. What you want to do when you find yourself going down that downward spiral is stop it as fast as you can. Okay? Just stop it as fast as you can. Because if you hold a thought for 17 seconds or more, whatever's on that frequency is going to come back to you. So if you've got this downward spiral, somebody did you wrong, guess what? It's going to keep happening. So you want to stop it. And that story will still be there if you want to pick it up anytime again. It's always the same. So you can just put it down. And what I do is say, find a happy place. Sounds pretty simple. But to get off that negative track, just think about something that brings you joy. Maybe it's putting on some good music. Listen to Pharrell Williams and Happy, or, you know, put on some music that you like, or think about going to the beach, or think about going to the mountains. Whatever it is that brings you joy, just think about that for 17 seconds or more. Take that little mental vacation, and you can change that spiral and move on, okay? Do you think this could make a difference for you? Okay, how could it make a difference? Who could give an example of how this could make a difference? I'm sorry, what? Save lives? I didn't hear all of what you said. You said save lives? Yeah, it would save lives. Absolutely. I don't think I've ever heard that before. That's terrific. Can I use that in the future? What else? What else? Any other examples? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just think that if you can turn yourself around, a lot of times what you're projecting, well, like you just said, it will pick up everyone else on your team or in your department. So maybe if you can turn yourself around, it may help to turn those others around without them even realizing they're turning around.
Bingo. Bingo. So if you didn't hear it in the back, what she says, people around you will start to change. When you start taking ownership and accountability for your thoughts and your words and your actions, if you take ownership and accountability of being positive, or of looking at things from a proactive standpoint, everybody around you is going to change. And there are going to be people who want to be on board with you, and there are going to be people who won't. Okay? And just be aware of that. When I do this work in organizations, what happens when we start working on organizational culture or on, you know, shifting communication patterns, what happens in every organization that I've seen, there are people who get on the bandwagon and go, I love coming to work every day because I feel good being here. Now, the people who like to whine and complain don't like it because they lose their compatriots in misery. And so if you notice, the people who like to complain about things hang out with each other. And the people who want to start turning things around start hanging out with each other. And so what you want to be doing is saying, this train's going forward. And there are going to be people who say, don't want to be on this train anymore. And I've seen it over and over again. Right now I'm working with a group of public works guys for a small municipality near Kansas City. And it's really fun working with them because we're changing the culture. I think I told Melissa about this. We're changing the culture in the Public Works Department. They have felt like they're the black sheep. The police and fire get all the glory. Okay, Public Works guys, nobody talks to them unless there's something wrong. You know, the streets aren't plowed. you know, the street lights aren't working or the grass isn't mowed on this, you know, boulevard or whatever it is. They only get the bad news. And so they decided that they wanted to turn things around. So we're working on a whole process right now of creating a whole new image and culture for the Public Works Department. Now, these are guys, as you well know, they're making like basically a little more than minimum wage. They've never done anything like this. And they are all over it. In fact, one of the foremen said to me, he goes, I've really got to watch how I talk to the people the guys in my department. He goes, I got to take more ownership of what I'm saying to them. And I like, oh, he's got it, you know? I mean, like he said, I can't be negative anymore with them. I can't be complaining about what they're doing or not doing. So these guys are really taking a hold of it. And it's been fun to watch. But then there are some guys within the organization that are going, I don't buy it. I'm not on board. And so we'll see what happens, yeah.
But how do you turn that around? Because I can speak for the city where I work. There is a lot about, I would say putting public safety individuals up on pedestals. And when we think about going out for, like last time we went out for a property test, of course, they wanted the fire and police people there going, door to door, not to say vote for it, but to provide information.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how, it is difficult to try and change that perspective.
Right.
When sometimes it's true.
Right.
That's difficult.
Yes.
In my city, because the employees do see that these are the people that are constantly being acknowledged.
Right. You're absolutely right. And it's not easy. And we've had long discussions about this with the team. And one of the things that we said is we're going to focus on us. Kind of like what you just said. When you have this positive attitude, everybody around you notices. So the goal that these guys have, and we have a list of 5 words of who they want to be and what they want to be known for. And this is a process that I use when I work with organizations to help them get focused and turn things around. It's not an overnight fix. And there's culturally embedded in every organization stuff, legacy stuff that's been around for years. And so with these guys, what we said is we're going to focus on what we can do. City council might do this, the police might do this, the fire department might do this, but we don't care. We're going to do our jobs the best as we can. And what's happening is other people are starting. We just started working on this more intensively in like July and August, so we still have more room to go. But they said people are already noticing a change in attitude. Like, what's going on in Public Works? These guys are happy every day. And so it's a very slow, but also the people have to be committed to it. And I'll tell you what their 5 words were. We went through this process that was really fun. And then we had a list of there were probably 20, 25 words that we were choosing. They said, what do we want to be known for? This is the basis of it. And they said, let's bring it back to the guys and have them vote on it. So then they brought back the top words that they wanted to be known for, and we narrowed it down. It was all through a very democratic voting process. These are their 5 words. And there was one word, I'll tell you this, it wasn't even on the list, but it made it to the top 5 because one guy brought it up and we had a great conversation. The words are united, accountable, dedicated, trustworthy, and pioneering. Pioneering was the word that came out that was like, whoa, what do you mean by that? And through discussion, they said, yeah, that's who we want to be. We want to be pioneering. And they are, because they're trying to change the culture. So, but you have to be on board with it. And some guys are going to make it and some aren't. I've seen it over and over again in every organization, whether it's a municipality. I've worked with boards of directors, and if the board's taking a direction and people aren't in line with it, then they oftentimes step down. Or in organizations that are working on changing the culture. I'll give you a quick example. I worked with a rural hospital in New Mexico on changing the corporate culture, and I worked with them for 18 months. And the reason we wanted to change the culture was because their patient satisfaction scores were in the bottom 5%. And they thought they were doing just fine, thank you very much. You know, it was crazy. And it was a little town, and when I say rural town, I mean rural town. I would fly to Amarillo, and then I'd get in a car and I'd drive for 2 hours to the middle of nowhere, and the nearest Walmart was 100 miles away. Yeah, 100 miles away. If I needed a flip chart, we had to order it like a couple weeks in advance. That's rural. So, as the CEO said, they were professionally isolated there. And so like we were doing brainstorming. They'd never done brainstorming. They didn't know what it was. Why aren't we making decisions, they said to me. You know, it's funny. So we thought we were starting here. We were really starting like down here. But what we did was we went through a whole process, same type of thing, creating what words, what do we want to be known for, how do we want to go about this. And I said, what you're going to find are the people who are really negative are going to leave. And one of the up-and-coming managers said to me, Marty, there's no place for these people to go. I said, if it works like I think it's going to work, people will leave. And they're like, I don't know. The only other place to work other than us is the prison. Big choice, you know. So it was about 6 months after we started working together, and this young woman came up to me and she goes, it's happening. I said, what? She goes, they're leaving. And I said, who? She said, the people we want to leave. How great is that? I said, where are they going? She goes, I don't know, but they're leaving. So, I mean, and it did. They did not want to be in a positive environment. And it was interesting. It was just really, I worked with them for 18 months, and it was fascinating to see the changes that took place. But one of the things that we found out, one of the reasons why their patient satisfaction scores were so low, was from the day that I started working with them, everybody always complained about housekeeping, which I can understand why. My first day there, I rang the buzzer to come in. I got there at about 7 a.m. and I wasn't sure where to go, so I went to the emergency area. This is a little county hospital. I went to the emergency room and I rang the doorbell, and I waited almost 10 minutes before somebody answered the door. Okay, saw a couple cockroaches while I was there, and I'm thinking, oh, I get why the culture's not so hot here, you know? So that's what we started out with. And everybody always complained about housekeeping. Well, what we realized was, who has more contact with the patients than housekeeping? In there delivering food 3 times a day. In there 3 times a day to take the trays away. In there to clean the rooms, maybe, you know. But they had more contact with the patients than the doctors and the nurses. And they were mean. They were snarky. They were just not enjoyable people to be around. So what we ended up doing is we started doing a lot more training on service and communication and trying to help them be more pleasant. That's a good place to start, you know, like let's be pleasant. And it didn't really take hold. So we ended up outsourcing the housekeeping department. And guess what happened? Patient satisfaction scores went up because people were nice to them when they went into the room. Isn't that crazy? But what you'll find, and to answer your question again, it's not an easy process, but in these guys like at Public Works and every place else, they said, we just have to focus on us. And they're going to do what they're going to do. City Council's going to do what they're going to do. If we're united and dedicated and trustworthy and accountable and pioneering, we'll be happy. Isn't that cool? I thought it was amazing. So let's see if we can get this. There we go. Okay, so it's really about building collaboration and building trust. So what I want to share with you, I'm going to share a quick story. Some of you saw this and might be wondering what this is and why I brought it here. I hope I don't have to use it by the end of the day. This is a blessing stick. And I had an opportunity to go to Africa last year, and it was a really unique experience. It was a trip like, I've never done a trip like this before. Never thought I'd want to do a trip like this before. Usually my vacations, my big decisions are, do I want a mango margarita or a regular margarita? And I find myself in Africa for 2 weeks, and I am the only American. The organization was from Canada. Everybody else was Canadian. I was the only American. Only one other person was traveling solo, and then I was also the oldest person on the trip. And the trip was a combination of doing service work and building a school and having time with the community leaders. So it was a really interesting trip, and as I tell people, I stepped in more dung than you could ever imagine. You know, cow dung, donkey dung, zebra dung, monkey dung, you know. And at first I was kind of like slipped and I was a little embarrassed, and then I realized this is just going to be what it's going to be like for the next couple of weeks. But it was fascinating because we spent time with the community leaders. And Kenya, which I can't really tell you where I was, all I know is that I had GPS coordinates. Someplace south of Nairobi, and we were in the Masai Mara. And when we met with the community leaders, they explained the blessing stick. And they said, rural Kenya is a group society, and they make decisions that are in the best interest of the group. And I can tell you lots of stories, but I'll narrow it down. They said, like when we get together, they start out, Mama Jane was one of the community leaders who we met. Now Mama Jane carries 75 pounds of water on her head 5 times a day for about a quarter mile. And she does this because her daughters can now go to school. So she's happy to carry the water on her head 5 times a day because her daughters get to go to school, which they never got to do. I couldn't carry 25 pounds of water for like 100 yards. I was like exhausted. She's a community leader. And it started out where they had like 12 families that they got together, and the organization I went with teaches them how to do these things. And so they pooled their resources, and they would pool their crops, and they would bring their crops to the market, and then the proceeds would be divided up with the 12 families. And so it was a small community, and Mama Jane was a leader at the very beginning. Well, now they have over 600 families in their community, and it's this big structure, and they have their own banking system because the Bank of Kenya charges 25 to 30% for interest. So it's like a big co-op, and they make the decisions for their community. And they said if somebody gets kind of on their own agenda and wants their own way and wants to make a decision that benefits them but not the good of the community, the elder or the wise person in the group takes the blessing stick and passes it this way to the person. And the person has to hold it until they can get their head around doing what's in the best interest of the whole. Isn't that cool? I think every organization should have. What? What did you say?
I get 27,000 of those.
Exactly. Don't you think, if you want to pass it around, it's a pretty cool thing. I think so. I think every organization should have blessing sticks. And I had an opportunity, one of our activities was to sit with people when they make them. And literally, we sat on the ground. There was one guy that had a big block of wood, and he had like a machete, and he got the basic shape. And then he would pass it to guys sitting on the ground who had a file, and they'd get the shape refined. Then they'd it would go to women sitting on the ground, and they had little shards of glass that they would just get smoother and smoother. Then they would pass it to women who were sitting on the ground, who had a leaf that felt like sandpaper, and they would rub it. And then the last group of women had like a balm, like almost like a Vaseline jelly that they would put on to smooth it out. And then it would go to a place for beading. And they're able to have a sustainable living doing this. But anyway, it was a pretty cool experience. And we said to Mama Jane, well, what do you do when people want their own way? And she said, we keep on talking. Like, really? Like, what do you say? She said, and what they're basically doing is keeping the vision in front of people. Keeping that vision of what they want for the good of the whole. So think about this. If you're not getting the results that you want, are you being like that quote in Albert Einstein saying the same thing over and over again? And maybe the thing to do would be to start creating and putting that vision out there that the town or your municipality has as its vision for the future. And you can say, how does this fit? Because what you want to be doing is creating an environment of collaboration. Does that make sense? Yeah. It was pretty cool. I mean, when she kept saying, well, we just keep talking. And we're all sitting there like, really? You know? And it works with, and it did work. Because they knew it was going to be better to do what's for the good of the whole than to have their own self-interest. Okay, so this is pure gold, all right? I want you to get, this is, if you don't walk away with anything else, this is really terrific. So when I was doing my research on how to get different results that would make a difference, this is one of the pieces I came across. And basically it says that people remember only 5% of the verbal or what you say. They're remembering 35% of the vocal or how you say it. And 60% of what they get are your vibes. I see a lot of you shaking your heads. So what are you thinking about when you hear that?
Yeah, you can just tell as soon as somebody comes, like if somebody would come up to the counter, and you know, you can see it in their face that they're aggravated about something.
Yeah.
And if you come up and you, hi, how are you? And you put off that good vibe, their whole attitude changes. I mean, even though they might be just so frustrated and mad, they'll bring it down.
Right. So your vibes really impact the outcomes. You can see that. How many of you can see that with the people who come into your offices? Yeah. And like so many times we forget because we can get so caught up in our own little drama. Yeah, go ahead.
And the phone.
And the phone?
And the phone.
Okay, say more about that.
Yeah, just like one time I was taking some training and it was about the Disney way.
All right.
And you just answer it like you're the Barbie in the Toy Story car. Hello, you know, and it makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
Whoever's at the other end. I mean, it really has a positive impact.
It does.
You're a super friendly voice.
People respond. You're absolutely right. On the phone, if you smile when you answer the phone, that's going to make a difference. Just smiling. We used to, when I worked for an insurance company in Green Bay, all the customer service people had little mirrors by their phones as a reminder so that they could be smiling when they answered the phone. Because just like, you know, with them, you guys, when people call you, it's not because things are going well. Right? They're only calling you because there's a problem, right? Yeah. So they want to know that they're going to be listened to, and your vibes are what people respond to. How many of you have kids? Kids get this. They're not listening, but they can tell by your vibes, ooh, avoid mom today, you know. So, okay. So we're back to this slide again. There's 2 new words on here. What words do you see? You know what? You guys, you should get a prize because every other group, the first word that they yell out is drama. And I think it's so funny because drama is like this little and then courage is this big. You know, but they see drama first. You guys saw courage first. Yeah, I added these 2 words for a couple reasons. One is if you're in high drama, you can be sure there's a lot of blame and excuses. Right? And it might be fun or funny for a few minutes, but then it really is a downer. So if you find yourself in high drama, find a way to get yourself taking ownership and accountability. And this is a tool that I want to tell you about. To help you turn things around, what you can say, if you see yourself blaming and making excuses, ask yourself, what can I say or do to take ownership and accountability for this? You might want to write that down. What can I say or do to take ownership and accountability for this? And I'll give you a quick example. When I first started studying this stuff, it was probably 20 plus years ago. And as I said, I grew up on the East Coast. I'm a Rhode Islander, and all my family is in New England. And here's what I used to say, and I want you to tell me, am I taking ownership or am I blaming and making excuses? This is what I used to say. You know, the old say the same thing over and over again. You know, I've lived in the Midwest for a really long time, and my sisters never come to visit me. Is that above that line or below the line? Below. See, this happens every time. You say it's below, but to me it was just fact. It was just fact. So I asked myself, what can I say or do to take ownership and accountability? And this is how it turned around. When I changed it, when I asked a different question, I said, you know what? I've lived in the Midwest for a really long time, and I've never invited my sisters to visit me. Never invited them. So I got on the phone. I called my sister. I said, hey, how would you like to come to Kansas City to visit? She said, I'd love to. Really? She came out for a long weekend. We had a fabulous time. She's been to visit me 6 or 7 times. She helped me move and she unpacked my kitchen. Right? You know, that would never have happened if I hadn't taken the initiative to give her a call and say, how would you like to come? Now, ladies, this is for you. Guys, I've got something for you too. But here's the thing. When you start taking ownership and accountability, ladies, sometimes we can get a little bit snippy about it, if you know what I mean. And I'm going to give you a demonstration of what it looks like in my head. Sometimes we actually do this, but this is kind of how it looks when we take ownership. We kind of go like this. Why is it always up to me? Nobody else ever steps up to the plate. It always lands on my shoulders. You know, when is somebody else going to help out here? Does this sound familiar? Yes. Yeah. So whether it's something at work or planning the Thanksgiving dinner, we get a little bit huffy about it. Here's the deal. You don't ever have to take ownership and accountability again if you don't want to. I gotta say that again. I mean, a couple of you are raising your eyebrows like, yeah, see, fat chance. But I'm gonna tell you again, you don't have to take ownership and accountability ever again unless, if you don't want to. And if you choose not to, you give up your right to complain. Okay? It's pretty simple. If you don't want to take ownership and accountability for the choices that you're making, then you can't complain, period. I think that's a pretty fair equation. You know, there's no drama. When you take ownership and accountability, there's no judgment, there's no drama. It just is. So the other word is courage. And when I did my research way back, I studied a research study that was done at the University of Arizona. And what they did, oh, I want to back up from it. Just seeing your face reminded me, I got to tell you what guys do. Yeah, I don't want to forget this. So ladies, just like we have a tendency to get a little huffy about things, guys have their own version of this. All right, you ready, you guys? And it's something like this. What, huh? Huh? You talking to me? I don't remember ever hearing that. Or whatever it is. That's kind of how it goes. So just know, we're on to your tricks. So here's the thing. When I read this study from the University of Arizona, they wanted to find out what's the impact of emotion on your body. And they calibrated through applied kinesiology hundreds of thousands of people over a 30-year period to find out what happens to your body when you experience emotions for long periods of time. And what they found out that was that shame is the worst emotion somebody can experience for long periods of time. And it goes up the ladder. But if you think about the words that would be down below, words like shame, anger, guilt, resentment, fear. If people hold those emotions for long periods of time, their bodies start to wear down. And their immune systems can be compromised. You know, think about it. If you've had a case of the blues, you know, you feel a little, you know, a little lethargic. You might not eat what you normally eat, or you might have a few more cocktails than you normally would have, or you might want to just lay on the couch for a while. And most people can kind of snap out of it and move on. But if you continue and you've experienced negative emotions for a long time, then it will wear your body down. Conversely, what they found was that people who experience positive emotions, like love, joy, gratitude, compassion, were healthier. Their bodies were stronger. Their immune systems were stronger. They didn't become ill as frequently. So what I liked about the study, though, was that the dividing line between the negative and the positive emotions was courage. Think about it. It takes courage to take ownership and accountability. It doesn't take any courage to blame or make excuses. So think about in your work, the times that you need to stand up and speak up. It takes courage to do that. But your citizens are counting on you. Your citizens are counting on you to have the courage to speak up and represent them when nobody else is. It's one of those things that can make a huge difference. Now, one of the things I also wanted to talk about is how you participate. Because how you participate has a huge amount to do with the results that you achieve, or that you have in your life or in your work. So when I think about participation, it has to do with more you're listening than you're speaking. So when you're in meetings, how are you participating in meetings? Are you sitting there thinking, oh, here he goes again. How many times have we heard this one? Oh, he's on his soapbox. Oh, I wish we didn't have to hear that one more time. Are you sitting back there listening judgmentally, or are you listening like, wow, I know he said this before, but maybe I'm missing the point, and maybe I need to listen a little bit more closely? That's probably not what's going through your mind most of the time. But what I'm going to suggest is that your participation is going to have a huge impact on the results, not only for you, but for everybody in the room. When we go back to the idea that your thoughts are vibrational energy, what you think about and what you focus on is what you get, how you participate in a meeting can impact the whole room. So I'll give you an example. How many of you have ever walked into a room or been in a room, given what you do, I'm sure it's happened many times, where you say, boy, you can cut the tension with a knife. Oh yeah. That's vibrational energy at work. You just feel kind of icky because you feel like something's off, and you can't really pinpoint it. It wasn't any one thing. It was just kind of this feel in the room. Just like you can walk into a room and you can say, wow, the energy in here is really great. It's got good energy. Same thing, only in reverse. So, and it's the power of the thought that has that impact. Just like when you meet somebody, you can say, I really like them. I don't know what we talked about, but I liked them. That's their vibes that they give off. Or you might say, ooh, they kind of give me the creeps. Same thing. So when your vibrational energy impacts the room and how you participate, and what I'm going to suggest is that you, and it goes along with this slide, you can propose or you can oppose. And I heard a CEO say many years ago that when he used to, when the company was small, he would meet with all the new employees. And he would tell the new employees, if you can imagine this, on their first day, you can't oppose anything I say. Can you imagine being a new employee and having your CEO say, you can't oppose anything I say? And then he said, you can propose whatever you want. And I really like that. So when you get in a sticky situation in your meetings or with your board or with your citizens, ask them, what could we propose? What do you think? And when you're proposing, you're asking questions like, what do you think we could do that would make this better? Or we might have tried that before, but how could we make it better this time? And opening up the door, that's collaboration. Proposing is about collaboration, and opposing is really about just putting up the wall. And I'm sure you have a lot of people who just want to put up the wall and get their own way. So the more you can create an environment that is proposing and collaborating, everybody else, just like what you said, everybody's going to start to go, oh, it feels a little weird at first, but I kind of like it. So, what thoughts and reactions do you have so far? Why don't you turn to the person next to you and share what you're getting out of this so far? Let's take about 2 minutes. 1 minute each way. So, what did you find out in your small group discussions? What were some of the takeaways from that conversation? Who wants to share what you're getting out of this so far?
We were talking about our teenage daughters and the 3 B's. It's not so much what you say, but it's how you say it.
Yes.
And we were talking about it in relationship to our daughters talking to us, and they say, yeah, Mom.
Yeah, the old eye roll with the teenagers, yeah, exactly. I have a quick story I want to share with you about that, about the importance of the 3 V's and what can happen. It was probably about, I don't know, 10 to 12 years ago. I was working with a client, I'll call her Linda. Linda was an executive at a large bank. And they brought me in because Linda was promoted to a level, and then they said, you have to stop acting that way. You're too aggressive. And this is something that a lot of women have seen and experienced over the years. And she's like, well, what do you mean? This is how I get the job done. So when I met with Linda, this is kind of how she introduced herself to me. She goes, I'm Linda. I'm the one they go to get the job done. And I thought, okay, got a few dead bodies left behind here, a little steamroller, we're going right ahead. So we started working together, and she said, Marty, I'm fine with my boss, and I'm fine with my direct reports. It's my peers I have trouble with. And I thought, well, that's probably not really true. Her direct reports are probably scared to death, and her boss probably tolerates her. But she said, we went through all the stuff that you had heard so far, and she said, I have trouble with my peers. And I said, well, what happens when you're with your colleagues? She said, well, if we have a meeting, people don't show up, or they send somebody in their place, or they don't follow through on what they say they're going to do. And I say, well, what do you do? And she'd been to all the classes, the communication classes that you've gone to that say, smile. Lean forward a little bit, not too much. Keep your arms open. Have you all heard this before? Smile and lean forward, be open. And so she said, I do that. And I say, well, what do you say? And she said, I say, come on, guys, let's work together. We're all on the same team. And I said, what do they do? And she said, nothing. And we've all seen that before, that cheerleader that's so annoying and, And so we kept on working. She saw all this stuff that you've heard today, and she's working on it. And she said, I just keep trying, and I keep saying to them, come on, let's work together. Let's work together. And nothing ever happens. So one day she came for a coaching session. And she said, I think I know now why people aren't working with me. And I said, really? What do you think it is? Now, I can't make this up, all right? It was too good to be true. I could never have thought to make this up. This is what she said. I said, why do you think they're not working with you? And she said, I don't like them. I don't like them. I don't trust them. And I resent having to work with them. I said, bingo. Bingo. She could do, on the 3 V's, she was saying and doing the right thing. But her vibrational energy was all, I don't like you, I don't trust you. She was smiling while she did it. you know, had her arms open, smiling, but inside she was angry. She didn't like them. So we went back and I said, you know, we really don't need to unravel this whole thing. She'd worked with her peers for 15 years. And she said, I don't even know why. Now think about this. She said, I don't know why, what happened. And we said, well, let's not try to unravel what happened. Let's just start where we are and move forward. So I have a process that I use, similar to what I described for the departments, but we created a process of who did she want to be as a leader. And she came up with her keywords of who she wanted to be with a leader. What would it look like? What would it sound like? What would she be saying? What would she be doing? How would people be interacting based on her keywords? And it was like she couldn't rebuild trust because she didn't have any trust with them to begin with. She had to start from scratch. Okay, they didn't like her either. So she was, I will tell you this, she was diligent, she was persistent, she was consistent, and she really became a phenomenal leader. And probably about a year and a half later, she was promoted because of her ability to collaborate and build teams. And I worked with other people who worked with her after that, and they said, you know, we don't know what you did, but she sure is great to work with. And I share that with you because people pick up on your vibes, and she didn't even know that those were her vibes that she was giving off. But then people can change if they want to, And Linda wanted to. She wanted to have a good working relationship. And I lost track of her for a while, and then about 2 years ago, I got a LinkedIn invitation from her. And she was a senior VP at an organization in Pittsburgh and looks like she's doing really, really well. So I share that with you because if you're not getting the results that you want, step back and really look at your vibes. And are your vibes consistent? Are you taking ownership and accountability of your vibes? Because that's what people are listening to. Now, the other thing I want to share with you on this is when you take ownership and accountability, there's no judgment. Okay, no judgment. It's clean. It's clear. It just is. There's no attitude. There's no right or wrong. It's just very clear. And people will get that. They get when there's a clear communication of ownership and accountability. And I want you to think about integrity as we talk about this. And I use the word integrity not in terms of right or wrong or good or bad, but every building has to have integrity, right? Buildings have to have integrity so that they have the right foundation and they have the right materials and structures. The design is right so that the building can be strong and withstand the growth up or out. And the same is true of us as individuals, and the same for our organizations. So think about the integrity for you personally, having a strong foundation. What's your intention? Remember we talked this morning earlier about having intentions. What's your intention? What's your foundation that gives you strength? And what support structures do you have in place? Your support structures can be your family, your faith, your community, your hobbies, your exercise, your nutrition. Those are the things that keep you strong so that you can grow forward. And do you have the right structures in place to go in the direction that you want to go? And one of the things, like I said, on a personal level, just like in organizations, the more you take ownership and accountability for your choices, there are going to be people, and it may even be family members, who go, I like the old you better. And you might say, I can't go back to the old me anymore. Because once you start living a life of accountability and ownership and truly taking ownership of your choices, there are going to be people who aren't going to like that because it's like holding up the mirror and they're going to feel like it's their issue. We're going to be talking about that this afternoon, as a matter of fact. But you just got to stand strong and have the people and resources around you to help you grow. Now, the same holds true for your organization and in your municipalities and in your cities. You've got to have a good foundation. And when you get into sticky situations, which I heard a couple in the back of the room when we had a breakout, the best thing you can do is just be accountable for the work that you do and stand strong in the foundation of what you're there to do and how you're there to serve. Your role is to be of service and to be that person. You're the rock for your organization, for your city. People count on you more than any other position in that city. So the stronger you are as an individual, the stronger you can be in your role. And you can influence the people around you by taking that ownership and accountability. And when I talk about being positive, I see being positive is different than taking ownership and accountability. Positive is good, but it's not like I want you to think you have to have rose-colored glasses on. That's not what this is about. It's about being clear and non-judgmental. Having a positive attitude is great. Smiling and being, gracious is wonderful. And that's terrific. That will spread too. But just being accountable will spread, and people will feel automatically more joyous. We got a lot of activity today, don't we? So think about how can you bring integrity and restore integrity and vision and focus for the future into your organizations. Just think about that for a minute. What are you talking about? Are you talking about the things that are important? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about things in ways that you can move things forward? Or are you thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of dealing with this? So one little quick thought, and I'll share this with you, is when you find yourself going down into that downward spiral, or you've got somebody in your department or a colleague who wants to vent and complain, here's what you can do. Say to them, do you want to vent or do you want to problem solve? Okay? Do you want to vent or do you want to problem solve? If you want to vent, how much time do you need? Do you need 2 minutes? And I would say no more than 2 or 3 minutes to vent, because then you just get repeating. It's just another version of what's already been said. So ask them, do you want to vent? You need 2 minutes? Okay, go for it. Give it your best shot. Vent away, really let her rip. And you listen and you just say, wow, you don't even comment, don't say anything, just let them rip. And they say, is there anything else? No? Okay, good. Let's get back to work. So like with my public works guys, I got to tell you this. I gave them an assignment before our next meeting. And when we got to the next meeting, nobody had done it. And so I told the manager, I said, we're going to have a little talking to today. And so I called the guys out on not doing the assignment. And this one guy, brave soul, he said, we're busy. I said, yeah, you are busy. He goes, we don't have time to do this. Like, this is just too much. I think you're asking too much to do this. And I said, what else? And he went on and he let her rip. And I said, okay, yeah, what about the rest of you? You agree with Steve? Yeah, we do. Like they were all on it. And I said, well, what else? What else are you upset about? Tell me. And they kind of, all of a sudden it started to die down a little bit. And I said, come on, I want to hear. And they said, well, we just think it's a lot. I said, it is a lot. It's hard, and I'm asking you to do this. And last week you said you would, and you didn't. So next week you're going to do it? And they go, uh-huh. I said, okay, is there anything else that you've got to say about this? I get that you're upset and you didn't want to do it, but what else? No, that's it. I said, okay, let's move on. And we moved on. And their jaws dropped because they got to say what they wanted to say. I totally heard it. Agreed that they have a lot to do, and said, okay, you going to do it? Yeah. All right, let's move on. And they weren't used to that either. So they thought it would kind of linger throughout the day. No, it didn't. We got it done. It was done. So let's take a couple minutes. I want you to realize that this is the first step in the process. What you're hearing today, we're going to be building on this for the rest of the day, what you heard. We're going to build on it as it relates to power. We're going to build on it as it relates to communication this afternoon, because this is the foundation of everything. If you can't take ownership of your thoughts, words, and actions, then there's really not much else we can do. Your time management, your communication, your leadership, your delegation, it's kind of hard if you can't take ownership and accountability. So this is the foundation and first step of everything. So at this point, I want you to write down, what do you need to stop doing? What do you need to start doing? And share it with the person next to you.